Hello, welcome to the very, very special show. It's a show in the run-up to what we are calling the first Modi budget. It's been exactly a month since the government was sworn in. Exactly a month since the government was sworn in, and the budget is just about 2 weeks away. The reaction to the stock markets kind of typifies, gives us a snapshot of how the nation has viewed the change in government. Let's go back to January this year. Since then, the stock market is up about 20%. It became pretty clear in January that we would have a change in government, and that was enough to spur the market up to, quite nicely, and we're now up 20% since the 1st of January. May 16th, the day the results were announced, when the government came into power with a majority far greater than what most people have forecast. Since then, the markets are up 5%. In the last 1 month, since the government was sworn in, the market is up about 2.5%. So clearly the mood has changed, but it's not euphoric. And the reasons are that everyone knows that we are sitting on the cusp of being a breakout nation, but to get there, a lot of work needs to be done. And to make matters worse, we have been hit with problems from the international scene. We're hit with geopolitical problems in Ukraine, hit with a small crisis in oil, and perhaps more dangerous is we are facing now a deficient monsoon, which could turn dangerous in the weeks to come. So there are problems, there's a lot of hope, but there are problems, and that's something we hope that this government will be able to address, overcome, make the right decisions and move ahead. So what are we expecting from the first Modi budget? Joining us to give us their views, we've got Mr. Seshagiri Rao, Joint Managing Director and Group CFO at JSW Steel. Mr. Rao, thank you so much for joining us. He represents manufacturing, and we certainly have to kick manufacturing off if we want to have sustained double-digit growth. We've got Dr. Subhadra Rao, Senior President and Chief Economist at Yes Bank, someone who looks very, very closely at the economy. And we've got Ramdev Agarwal, Joint Managing Director of Motilal Oswal Securities, someone who's been bullish on India for quite a while. Ramdev, if I can come to you first. I remember speaking to you in 2012. That was perhaps a time when the mood was at its lowest. Everything looked to be at a point of despair. But at that time, you were not so perturbed, because you said the markets operate in 7-year cycles, the economy operates in 7-year cycles, and you saw the next uptick beginning 2014-15. Very prophetic. Was it just a coming together, a happy coincidence of events, that events conspire every 7 years to bring us to this position?
Yeah.
That may be. But the question really is, how can this government make these next 7 years, if it has 7 years or 10 years, different from the past, where it can take us out of this 9-8% growth and really build up the momentum to get us to a stage of double-digit growth with low inflation?
Yeah, I think first about the cycle, I started my career back in 85, 87. So first boom was 1985, VP Singh, Rajiv Gandhi show. Then 1992 was Harshad Mehta show. 2000 was Y2K bull run. Then 2007 we saw the Lehman global credit boom. Now, somehow the definitions are different, but it just occurs in a time series of 7-8 years.
Okay.
So I think we are due or overdue for a bull run here.
Okay.
And it has come in the form of Modi government and the promises from this so-called terrific mandate we have in so many years.
Okay.
Now, how do we
the timing is helping the Modi government, but let's quickly look at the problems, especially the immediate problem that you're facing of oil prices, of monsoon. How much of dampener can they be for us?
See, clearly it is a headwind against a massive tailwind of the mandate, and that's why this the day on which the 16th May, when the results came, they didn't get 272 plus NDA, they got 272 plus BJP alone. It's a huge difference. If you ask me, the difference between these two mandates are like night and day. Now, market has not moved after that, because this headwinds have the market had moved a little bit before that, but this fact was known only on 16th May. Even Mr. Modi was not knowing that this is going to happen. So this is a completely new development, and the market has not priced it. And one of the reasons is because in the short term, all the predictions will go wrong, and we'll be disappointed with what the market does or what the corporates do in short run. But in the long run, nobody can estimate how big is this going to be development.
Okay.
So you have to be, in investing, you have to be bullish, keeping long term in mind, rather than bother about next 3 months, 6 months, maybe monsoon will have a 1% cut in the GDP growth rate, maybe some stress on the rural consumption side. But I think Iraq looks to be a little more temporary, but still it's a stress right now.
Okay.
So all these things are holding it back, but I think longer term this will have a huge, the kind of mandate and the kind of energy we are seeing. It's not only the mandate. Following the mandate, the kind of energy we are seeing in the pace of decision making, I only hope that this decision making is, one thing I would say about the broad direction of this decision making should be that it should be very, very pro-business, because the businesses are the ones which make or break the countries. Businesses create the jobs, businesses create the profit, and profit should not be viewed as bad. Profit is good, greed is bad. So government must differentiate this and try to see in every possible way how they can help the businesses, because government has become very business and unfriendly till date. And if you don't do businesses, and people have stopped expecting anything from government. Even while they are saying so, I don't get the courage to think that government can do anything.
Okay, so I'm going to come back and ask you what you would consider pro-business, pro-business friendly. But first, let me get a word in from Shubhda and Mr. Rao. Shubhda, as Ramdev says, the mood has changed. I mean, everywhere you look, people are smiling. You suddenly feel good to be an Indian. You feel that you don't have to go outside to get benefits of growth. But immediate problem, monsoon and oil. How worried are you as an economist?
I think the risks are quite real, that the monsoon progress seems to be very deficient, and at this point in time, the prognosis it's mixed. So risks are real, both on monsoon progress and also on oil. But if tackled and deftly and in a proactive manner, we can minimize the damage. And when I say that, if monsoon does indeed fail and we have the worst performance through El Nino impact, what are the measures that the government could look for in a proactive manner? Could offload buffer stocks, could import some of the food items, and most importantly, I think, spend their energies on effective distribution channels. What really India has been lacking is in
so that will take care of inflation, but what will take care of sentiment on consumer confidence, on consumer?
Absolutely, yeah. So I think, well, we all know that agriculture share in GDP is 14%, but more important would be, as Mr. Agarwal was also alluding to earlier, it's very important where the budget thrust comes into. I think this is a budget where we need to incentivize investments and not incentivize consumption, because one, we need a sustainable growth cycle to persist, and that would come not through short-term myopic measures of fiscal stimulus, but how do we revive investment, create jobs, and bring in sustainability, which in turn would bring in consumption. So my clear thrust in this budget would be to look for enabling conditions which would bring in recovery in investments, because that would come through only, it would improve supplies, it would combat inflationary pressures going forward, and it would create fiscal space for the government, very importantly, to be able to switch its expenditures from subsidies to capital projects. I think these are the very key ingredients that one would want to look at going forward in this budget. As you said, monsoon seems a real risk. Oil, for that matter. Today, of course, we don't have such an alarming rate yet, but if Iraq, war persists for much longer time, we'll have to look for some short-term difficult measures in terms of, setting the domestic petroleum product prices higher, in a staggered manner, as has been done in the past in terms of diesel. We'll have to extend it to LPG and kerosene, where the thought is already in progress. I think if we are able to balance some of these wasteful expenditures and counter them with switching over to productive expenditures, it will create a lot of fiscal space to be able to limit the damage that these real risks seem to be posing for the economy at this point in time.
Mr. Rao, clearly, as everybody is aware of the fiscal risk, the government seems to be very clearly aware. To be fair, the previous government also was very clearly aware. From September last year, they did everything to improve the balance sheet of the country. But people will be talking to now saying that markets, people like you, industry would be disappointed if they didn't see real reform. What kind of reform would you want from the government, especially to spur up manufacturing?
No, today India has the greatest strength of having the mineral resources in the country. the kind of policies we have followed for the last few decades, majorly not using our comparative advantage which we have in the manufacturing and exporting the minerals from India and importing the finished goods into the country. With that we have a growth which is jobless growth, which is not contributing to the investment climate and also to the Indian manufacturing. So that way there are several policies which can be addressed in the budget. For instance, wherever we are exporting the minerals where we have, though they have to be discouraged and the exports should not be allowed. And at the same time, when India has opened up for various countries, we are also receiving the finished goods at a very, very low duties. Like Japan and Korea, with whom we have signed FTAs, free trade agreements. So they have been exporting a lot of finished goods to country. So the investment and jobs from India, it is shifting to other countries. So manufacturing has to get adequate priority as far as India is concerned by preserving our comparative advantage, our mineral resources. With that, I think we will be able to revive our investment climate and we can create jobs, and India will again come back to the growth of double digits.
Is it enough? So, but you're still saying fiscal incentives or disincentives for to prevent imports, incentive to export. Is that enough, or is there something more on the ground that you need? Because
yes,
all of what you could say could lead to in the short term to inflation in India. Because if you impose import duties, you will see prices going up. While it could help manufacturers, it could lead to some kind of problem for consumers.
No, in order to
how do we make you more efficient without using taxes?
So without doing taxes, there are productivity gains which the economy has. Several gains can bring in. If you see the comparative advantage which India has, particularly labor cost. Labor cost, if you compare with China, we are almost 40% of what an average Chinese labor get per hour. So that is the comparative advantage which India has. Whereas instead of having that advantage leveraged, what we are doing is we are paying 20% more than what other countries are paying in terms of their financing cost or infrastructure cost. So if a thrust is given on realigning the expenditure to infrastructure and then take away that bottleneck and leverage the advantage which we have in preserving the mineral resources and taking the advantage of this labor which is available and focusing on job-intensive, labor-intensive manufacturing sector, I think it will lead to the double-digit growth again.
Okay. Ramdev, in the last boom, the boom of 2000, and also later when India managed to get to 9%, we did it largely without manufacturing. We did it with services. Are we overrating manufacturing?
No, I think for job creation, clearly it's not that manufacturing should come at the cost of services. No, or it should come at the cost of agriculture. You must do all three components very well. But I think manufacture has been ignored, and probably it is because of legacy, in the sense that their tax revenues were coming from manufacturing, whether it is polyester, whether it is cement, whether it is steel. That was the main source of government revenue. And those inspectors and government's attention has been there. And I think that attention has not gone so far. They still want to regulate it in an incremental way. So, is there a way where you actually unleash the potential of the businessman, industrialist in that particular segment? Like what has happened in services. You see the services like software exports. We're doing $100 billion in 10 years. And in the next 5-6 years, we'll go to more than $250 billion. Unhindered. And with all the problems of power, you don't have high quality power in those technology parks. And yet these guys, they have been able to do it. You didn't have very good, even airports. You don't have proper visa rules. And yet they have been able to do it without any problem. So manufacturing has been, first thing is it's much more domestic oriented. Your consumers are all domestic or whatever you manufacture. Second is that I think there are a lot of obstacles in terms of even by the time you go off the ground, like mining, it is almost impossible. First thing is the process is very corruption intensive. Second is that by the time you're tired, by the time the permissions come from central government, state government, environment, clearance, and everybody is there to make money out there. So the businessman is tired. So you're not able to attack the energy and the attention of the businessman. I think that is what is the internal, freedom. I mean, liberation is required more in terms of saying yes rather than saying no. I think we have 90% no and 10% yes. I think what we need to do is 90% yes, and probably somewhere it is defense, it is some danger here and there, 10% no. I think this entire ratio has to change. in manufacturing.
Shubhra, let me just come to a specific. On Monday, the government announced a policy for sugar mills. It cleared, it made interest subvention loans. It increased them to, they were hiked. It hiked the import duty on sugar, so that imports wouldn't compete with goods. It increased the mandatory cap on ethanol blending with petrol to 10%. Now you could look at it two ways. You could argue that these measures give temporary relief to the industry, but they don't address the core problem. So this is a government that is afraid of taking hard reform measures. It is like any other government, just doing things on the surface. Or you could argue that this is a government that listens. It's found that this is an industry in trouble. So before we get into doing all the hard core reforms, let's give them. So it actually did manage to get 3 or 4 ministries together, heard their problem and tried to solve it. How would you look at it? Is this actually a responsive government, or is it a government choosing the easy way out, which then could spell danger for the future?
I would put my bet on the latter, that this is the government that listens and wants to first upfront resolve the problems and bring impetus to the industry that, without too many hurdles can be brought in. It's not just, if I extend it from sugar to what has been done to auto and consumer durables and capital goods today, was essentially extending the excise cuts. It is essentially looking to be implementing what is very easily doable in a very short horizon, and to the extent possible extend the support that industry so very essentially needs. Now, why capital goods or why consumer durables? Because we all know the sentiment has been very much downbeat over the last 2 or 3 years in both these segments. So extending it till such time they are able to mend and repair the underlying problems. See, underlying problems can be mended only over a period of time. But till that time, are you going to allow further deceleration in that industry's performance, or to the extent possible mend the short-term gaps, or provide impetus, short-term impetus, so that they have some more space to create a long-term policy solution for those respective industries. So, putting it in a nutshell, I think this government would be blending pragmatism of inculcating short-term.
What is doable? What is
short-term solutions, as well as use even beyond the budget time. It has to work 24/7, 365. So the long-term and the medium and long-term measures can be simultaneously be explored. But at this point in time, what the government needs is signal that is the government listening to our problems? Is it going to be upfront resolving them to the extent possible? I think the message would be very clearly yes.
Okay. Ms. Rao, are you getting a feeling that this government is a government that is at least listening to you? It may not have done too much yet for your industry, but it's a government that is listening to you.
So there is an intent which we are seeing that they want to do some reforms.
When would you want them to act, and how long are you willing to give this government?
We have to see the direction in the budget, which is also a very important event in my view.
Okay.
It is not only relating to taxes and how the expenditure and the income will come to the government. In addition to fiscal consolidation, what is the policy direction they would give for the future of India in the next 5 years?
So let me bring up a sector that is close to you. I mean, which is linked closely to you, coal. Today I was reading somewhere that coal perhaps typifies all the problems facing Mr. Modi and his government. One, we are sitting on perhaps the 5th largest reserves of coal in the world. We're sitting on about 290 billion tons of coal. Yet we are one of the largest importers of coal. We spend $15 billion importing coal. Yes. So how do we get this coal out of the ground and get it to your factories? We've got to build infrastructure. We've got to build railheads to the coal mines. You've got to get states on board. You've got to, in a sense, revamp a public sector company, which is Coal India. So how would a signal on coal be very important for you this time?
No, energy is very important. Out of that, most of the power plants in India are thermal-based, coal-based. So coal today, for various reasons, is not available in India to feed all our power plants and other requirements. Therefore, it has to be imported. So the major problem today is in generating companies in power sector is due to not able to sell the power. There are companies which are producing power and not able to sell it because the utility company is not willing to buy it for different reasons. One relating to tariffs which they are offering is not remunerated to the generator based on the imported fuel. Even assuming there are ports, there is coal available, coal at a very low cost. Even if power can be generated based on imported fuel, it is not possible to sell it.
Okay. No,
So
I get the point, but yet,
Yes.
I was using coal as an example of problem solving, because it will take some time for all of that to happen, but we need to get the coal out of the ground, build infrastructure, get the states on board and get
Yeah,
it to
it
you.
is definitely possible. Just like USA today, which was the energy importer, has become energy exporter. Similarly, today we have in India huge amount of coal reserves. So those coal reserves, if we can use properly in a manner where our requirements are met, we can become an exporter of coal going forward. I think it is very much essential that our policies should be orchestrated in a manner that we will be able to extract the coal as early as possible, provided the coal denationalization and amendment to that act happens, and it is made available to the coal to the actual users, and also they are permitted to sell the coal in the market. I think that will solve a huge problem, and we can become in fact net exporter of coal than not only meeting our requirements.
Ramdev, how patient will the markets be with this government? Will they be disappointed if they don't get clear reform signals in, if this government, if the budget turns out to be a budget which is only looking at the mathematics, reducing the fiscal deficit, which is all very, very important, but if it only is left, if it only lands up doing that and doesn't give you reform signals, and they may tell you, listen, we'll have reforms through the year, will the market be happy, or will the market want at least policy direction on reforms?
Market is a very complex, kind of mind, and so they are looking at fiscal reforms, fiscal consolidation, so called it. So are they? What is going to happen to revenue deficit? What are the reform messages you are getting? So I think it's not going to be that simple about one mathematics here and there. I think overall even budget speech itself, because ultimately if you look at why it is Modi budget, why we are calling it Modi budget, because he is one person who sets a goal and achieves it by hook or crook. Look at the election campaign they ran. 4 months back they said 272 plus for NDA. They worked very hard for 3 months and they delivered not 272 plus NDA, they delivered 272 plus BJP. So if you work with a long-term goal, very clear goal, and with a determined effort, that is what we see, this 16 hours work, everybody is having sleepless nights. So I think they are going to deliver, and actually the result will be bigger than what they are thinking. If they are thinking in 5th year they will go to double-digit kind of growth rate, maybe they will go to 12-13%. So that's the expectation. I mean, that's how my expectation is built, that they are the people, they go with a very clear goal and they overachieve the goal.
Okay, but when should they articulate the goal? Would it be very important that they articulate the goal and the road on how to get to that goal in this budget?
Yes, so clearly in this budget this is an opportunity to at least not and give the taxation. Taxation is very, very big problem in India.
Okay.
So give a roadmap for next 5 years, because at least 5 years you have in hand, if not for 10 years. So giving the taxation clarity for next 5 years, because foreigners are pissed off completely.
Okay.
With so many changes, you say something, do something, you acquire, you put billions, and then you change the rules of the game. I think we are fed up.
Okay.
I mean, you put, say in telecom or road or power, you put say $20-30 billion, and then when you come here, after that you change the retrospective effect laws, or even the how to compensate the guy in terms of say power rate or something. So I think this changing laws are the biggest nightmare.
Okay, so is it enough if they assure you that laws will now be stable, there will be no retrospective, or will the market want some of the retrospective actions to be actually undone?
Yeah, clearly, I mean, if you have committed a mistake and you recognize that mistake, is better accept it.
Okay.
And same way, even in the terms of backlog of the bills, everybody is saying 100,000, 150,000 crores is unpaid bills of government. You better pay it. You have to pay it one day. So better pay it now and then bite the bullet, put it into the fiscal deficit of last year or current year, wherever you want to put it, and then get on with, because these things are choking the entire system. So really, I don't think people are expecting some laddus out there in the budget, that my tax rate will come down by 5%. I don't think people are expecting benefits. People are trying to see whether this government has gathered courage to accept the problems and put it behind and move ahead for next 5 years.
Okay, so not benefits but opportunities, what they want.
Yeah.
Shubhrat, I mean, there is no running away from the fiscal situation. How can you consolidate the fisc and yet revive growth? Because at times they seem at It's an old question, but how can you do it at this time?
Oh, absolutely. I think we can debate endlessly on the fiscal deficit, the appropriate quantum, and the quality of fiscal adjustment. I think the heart of the problem is in the quality of fiscal adjustment. We can show a headline number of 4.1, but that would be, by understating subsidies, by overstating, revenues. For instance, the interim budget had tax revenue collection to be growing at 19 or 20%. Now we all know with the economic growth at 4.5%, likely to get better to 5+%, is it going to be feasible for the economy to garner a 20% growth in tax revenues? So arithmetic also becomes extremely important on the revenue side.
Let me just ask you, on the revenue side, what number would you think would be realistic and achievable? Because clearly 20% makes us skeptical.
Absolutely.
So what would be your...
I think we saw 10% growth last year. So I would think 15%, if I'm looking at the nominal GDP, to put it in numbers, if I'm looking at nominal GDP growth at a 12.5%, and if I look at the elasticity of tax to national income at 1.1, I think 15% growth in tax collections is very much doable. But this time the government is going to be strapped because of low growth yet, and the emphasis therefore will need to have to shift to the revenue streams besides tax revenue. No, admittedly tax to GDP ratio remains abysmally low at 10.2%. The best we saw was at close to 12% in 2007-8, but we definitely will take a while to get there. But the non-tax revenues, which include PSU disinvestments, that is the dilution of government stakes, will have to support in a big way on the revenue side. And as I said on expenditure, very clearly, subsidies need to get rationalized.
Okay, so we're going to carry this conversation after this very, very short break, and I'm going to say goodbye to our viewers on CNBC TV 18 who are watching this coverage live. You can catch the entire debate again this weekend. We'll bring you more. But stay tuned, you got market report, CNBC TV 18 market report coming up right after this.